Welcome to another episode of Dean Sports Report. Today, I'm very excited to introduce a guest, Mr. Dan Beyer, anchor and host for Fox Sports Radio. Dan, thanks for hopping on. I know it's been a long time coming. Appreciate you.
Dean, it's great to see you again. I'm happy to come on. Let's do it.
Sweet, sweet. I guess just to start off, it's been a crazy month already, just 1 week into April, and it got me thinking, is April the best sports month? We have the end of March Madness, beginning of the MLB season, NBA playoffs are about to happen, peak golf, we got the Masters soon to come, and then top it off with the NFL draft. Do you think April is the best month for sports?
I've always felt in this argument of spring versus fall that spring has the edge because of the variety. I think we all love football. We all love college football. And it's easy to say, oh, yeah, fall's the best because you throw in the baseball playoffs and you think you have everything. NBA starting in mid to late October now. But yeah, I think you're right because you started listing all the things that are happening at that time. And if you just look at the April calendar, and I've even talked a little bit about this on our shows on Fox Sports Radio, every single weekend of April is a huge event in sports. So we're just coming out of the Final Four in the national championship game. You mentioned the Masters coming up this week. Then the week after, start of the NBA playoffs. And then the week after that, NFL draft. So your April is always jam-packed, and all of these entities have figured out a way to schedule around each other. Baseball used to start in early April, but as you mentioned, that's happened a little bit earlier. But yeah, I think April has a really strong argument because of the variety and the, I guess, size. Because if you have playoffs, Masters seems to be the best. I think it's the best major that there is. And then when you have the NCAA tournament, doesn't get better than that. I think April's got a strong case above the other 11 months.
No, I love it. There's nothing like football, especially like NFL and college football comes around. But I've just like every single weekend, like you've just been saying, like I've just found myself stuck on the couch, not moving, and I cannot
Yeah.
complain because I love it, man. I want to start here too because I remember back in the day when I interned at the Fox Sports Studio, I remember hearing that you were a big golf guy, and this past year, I got the itch, man. I'm completely addicted to golf. Like I'm out here in Colorado, so whenever it's not snowing or at least the sun is somewhat out, I'm trying to get on the course, and I love it. Especially like we just talked about, the Masters is coming up. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. I know Scotty is the favorite to go back to back. I think this could be Rory's year. He's won 2 tournaments. Seems like he's coming off being the most hot, and then there's a bunch of other pros out there. I think people would love to see Bryson DeChambeau winning it.
Sure.
So who do you have making out of the Masters this year?
Well, I think that Rory is obviously going to be the story until he ends up winning one because it completes his career Grand Slam if he's able to win it. And also, I'm old enough to remember when Rory had a big lead in 2011 and then watched it vanish, and notably on the 10th hole at Augusta National. And the old saying, Dean, was the Masters doesn't start until the back nine on Sunday.
Sure.
And it killed Rory McIlroy. And so year in and year out since he's gotten this, and it's been a decade for Rory, to more than a decade now, for winning a major. He's been trying to complete that career Grand Slam. So it's always going to be a topic. And I think he's always going to be the fan favorite. You just have to deal with the pressures of Augusta. And I think that it has at times gotten to him. You can't win it on Thursday. You can't win it on Friday. You could sure lose it on those days. But I think that it's the pressure of it. It's only going to get worse as years go on. So you better do it sooner rather than later. You're right. He comes in pretty much in form. He's got the game to do it. I actually think the heartbreak from last year and losing the US Open allows him that momentum and maybe that chip on his shoulder to get it done this time around. I look at a guy like Adam Scott, who won the Masters in 2013, and he had a lead at the Open Championship the year prior and ended up bogeying the final 4 holes. Ernie Els played great on Sunday, and Els ended up winning it. But you would think that would have been something that would have maybe demoralized Scott, who hadn't won a major at that time. Instead, he goes to the Masters, ends up winning in a playoff, making some crucial putts. I think you could see the same sort of energy for Rory carrying over. But again, you mentioned Scotty Scheffler's playing well. The funny thing is, a bunch of guys that are on the live circuit are Masters champions. They played well this past weekend. You mentioned Bryson DeChambeau. Mark Leishman ended up winning in Miami. Sergio Garcia is obviously a Masters winner. He played well this past weekend. So there are names of guys that Brooks Koepka is always going to be a conversation piece. But I think if I had to pick, I honestly would pick a guy, probably Rory McIlroy in this case. I don't know if Scheffler's got it all the way back. He cut his hand earlier in the year that cost him some time on the tour. He was making, I
Sure.
think he was making pasta, Dean, and he had like a wine glass, and he was like cutting pasta, and it ended up shattering and cutting his hand, and that cost him like the first month of the season. But because of the limited field, you're going to talk about your normal horses for courses sort of play. But I think Rory does have a decent shot, maybe more so than even other years in the past.
No, definitely. I mean, it is interesting to see Scotty still has the best odds. I think they just got to give him that respect, winning it last year. It would be cool to see him go back to back, but I
Sure.
think he probably didn't have the year he wanted. But at the same time, I think it was just because that 2024 last year was an incredible year, obviously. So for him not to, be at the top, he's still, I guess, the number one player in the world. So you got to give him the respect there. I think I would love to see Bryson DeChambeau win it though, just because what he's been able to do with like YouTube golf and kind of transform the game of golf. Because for someone like me who kind of just got into the sport, I think they're doing a really good job with like getting like influencers and creators
Yeah.
involved and playing on their own as well. So now I'm like starting to familiarize people like who come on to Bryson show, someone like the good golf team. Like it's very cool to see pros and creators kind of mixed together to make golf a fun sport, because it really is, man. I love it. I love
I,
it.
I think that the creators, in a way, not completely, but I think in a way that they've really not saved golf, but they've given it new life. There was a point where golf, I would say 10 years ago, just wasn't there. Remember, Tiger wasn't necessarily at the peak of his game at that point. This is before 2019 when he ended up coming back and playing at the Masters, was just kind of off. There wasn't a buzz about golf. And then COVID hit in 2020. And golf was one of the few sports where you could actually go outside and play. Now, there were
Right.
funky rules looking back on how you would have to do it. They would put pool noodles in the cup so people wouldn't be spreading
Oh my
germs.
God.
And yeah, it was crazy. But people got outside. And well, in Southern California, it was difficult for us to do, at least in LA County at that time, to play. There were other counties who were much less restrictive. And that's what people did. They ended up going out and playing. So more people got to play golf, and it started to grow that way. I actually think that the PGA Tour, and I'm not a live fan by any means, but I'll put live golf in this conversation. They both have leaned on the creators to expand their brand, to get to an audience like you. And I think it's been nothing but good. In fact, I'm wondering what are the content creators getting? They're getting publicity from all of this, but in a way, I almost feel like the PGA Tour and Live are using these groups because of how popular that they are, and they've done a great job in doing it. And it's brought golf into a spot that I don't think anybody really saw before, and that's why I give these guys so much credit, and girls as well, for what they've done with the sport in terms of finding. It's not even a niche sort of thing. They've carved out their own big chunk and have put their stamp in the golf world, and I think it's great, and I think it's added to its popularity.
No, you said it perfectly, man. I think golf is heading in the right direction. And I mean, sure, there might not be a Tiger Woods playing every single weekend, but I think obviously Scotty is up there. I just think there's a lot of competitiveness now, and just like being able to watch it as a fan who kind of just got, I mean, obviously just got into the sport. I mean, I was able to watch full swing without knowing exactly what happened in every tournament. So it was cool
Mhm.
to see that. And now, now being someone who's watching it every single weekend, I can't get enough, man. But
Can can I just say one other thing just
yeah.
with that? It's funny too because we talk about, and I don't know if we're going to get into women's basketball and what went on, but there's such a thing. The Caitlin Clark effect was something, and I do think that there are parallels to when Tiger was into the game. Not exactly everything, but I know a lot of people who were into golf who were like, "Well, who's the next Tiger?"
Mhm.
Well, there is no next Tiger. There's no such thing as the next Tiger. There's a bit of a drop off. I would even say some of the stars that we have right now are more soft spoken and maybe aren't great for what we've got in sport. And when you see like Xander Schauffele winning a couple of majors, Xander's a great player. Doesn't necessarily ooze popularity and excitement. Very soft spoken. Colin Morikawa the same way. I knew Colin a little bit during his amateur years. Got to play a round of golf with him. One of the
Oh,
nicest guys you could have. Could meet. But it's not like he's the Tiger fist pump guy. And so there's a knack for there's a there's room for Bryson DeChambeau, and
Yep.
there's a lot of room for him. And I think that he's elevated to that point just because of the excitement that he brings and the energy that he brings. Because you have a lot of guys who maybe are just a little soft spoken and not bringing that attention that maybe a bigger voice would.
Definitely. No, I mean, he's such a big deal on like YouTube as well and just social media platforms. So I think, with this day and age, you got to just run with media and people kind of are able to see him more on a personal side of things. And that also builds his brand. So I think that's probably the closest to excitement of like a fan favorite. I know maybe a couple years past, Bryson wasn't that guy, but I think he could be a fan favorite now. So that'll be very fun to watch. But yeah, moving on, just got a lot to talk about. Obviously, we talked about how April is there's just so much sports going on. But of course, this podcast will probably be going out tomorrow. So I guess we will have a crowned March Madness winner by then, whether it's Florida or Houston. But, this March Madness, it was the year of chalk. It was a very competitive Final Four. And that was just because, all one seeds, I think people were a little mad that, there was no Cinderella story this year. But at the same time, I think we were able to see probably the most competitive Final Four in recent history. Just talking quickly about Duke. I mean, you could call it a choke job. They were up about 7 with like 1 minute left. I obviously did not have them winning, or I did not have them, selling that game. But the first thing I think about is you see someone with such high of a prospect as Cooper Flag, and there's been a lot of talk about him if he's going to stay another year or if he's going to go to the NBA and be a number one pick on probably a pretty bad team. And what do you think? Do you think that Cooper should stay another year, and especially how the season with Duke ended, they weren't able to win it all, or should he, not risk it and go take that money in the NBA?
Yeah, selfishly, I honestly feel that he should be a guy that stays in college. Sorry, just needing a little drink there because I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I don't want to run out of my voice. He classified early, so when you look at where Cooper Flag is, he's a year younger than everyone, and this was the whole plan all along. You don't reclassify early just to stick around in college another year. The plan, you reclassify early so you can get to the NBA draft and get into the NBA sooner. So that's the plan with Cooper Flag at that point. Win or lose, Dean, they would have lost in the first round. He's going to the NBA. If they would have won a national championship, he's going to the NBA. I think that we think that NIL is the save all and the cure all and the ability to maybe bring Cooper Flag back. It is not going to happen. In fact, some insiders have pointed out as well. I know that you've worked with Aaron Torres at our network. Aaron made the point when we were doing a show recently of Duke is a program where they've already got their next class set up. So
Right.
their class is planned for Cooper Flag to leave. I don't want to say that there's not room for Cooper
Yeah.
Flag because I'm sure they would love to have him back. But when you're bringing in an incoming class, you're planning on your star freshman to be there 1 year and then leave. So there's that aspect of it. I don't think that the people who seriously follow college basketball thought that there could be a chance for Cooper Flag to leave. And watching on Saturday, I'm sure that they were hoping, oh, maybe he's gonna this loss is gonna hurt him so much that he's gonna want to come back. It's very rare when that happens. It happened with the Ohio State football team this past year when a group of their guys said, we're not going to go to the NFL. We want to come back. We want to beat Michigan. We want to win a national championship. Well, they didn't beat Michigan, but they did win a national championship. But that's probably a good tale for people to say, all right, if I can make millions upon millions in the NBA or stay in college for NIL money, I think NIL and keeping kids in college has been great for the sport. But for Cooper Flag, in his situation, the plan has always been to go to the NBA, and I think that's going to be the plan moving forward.
No, for sure. I mean, I love NIL. I love the creativity and just the brand awareness like we're able to bring in with partnering up these college students that really weren't able to make money beforehand. But I think you're right. I think the top prospects, I mean, it seems like the decision has already been made. It's just funny to think in like hypotheticals, like it without NIL or without these Duke freshmen leaving, just being one and done. Like we could have seen a Duke team this year with Cooper Flag, Jerry McCain, Paolo Banchero. Like these players are in the NBA and they're the same age as me. While it's just crazy to see that like they could still be in college and that would just be a whole different crazy world. But at the same time, it's like Duke seems like they're such a powerhouse team, but at the same time, I don't think they've been in a national championship game in about a decade. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you just got to play it safe and just, if you're going to be that number one overall pick, you don't know what's going to happen next year. Like, obviously, God forbid an injury happens. I think that's probably the way his agent and the people around him are thinking.
And in saying that, if Paulo Banchero is still at Duke, Cooper Flag then goes to UConn. Like
Yeah.
that's the thinking of it. And so there are different problems for each program. Some try to reload after a great season. Duke just reloads every year, but they're not going to keep these great players. I mean, Con Kneppel's going to be a lottery pick.
Yep.
Kneppel has been great this year for them, and he's going to go on to the NBA and be a top pick. So it's life at Duke. But you're right; they hadn't been to a national championship game since they won it in 2015. So it's been a bit of a dry spell. I know the loss on Saturday really, really burned Duke fans, and a lot of the Duke haters absolutely loved it. But I do feel a part for Cooper Flag, who has that one opportunity, gets the over-the-back call, misses the shot near the end of regulation that could have given him the lead, and he's not going to have a chance to redeem himself. He could have make the choice to do so. There's no guarantee you get back that far. And again, this is the plan all along. He's going to the NBA.
I know, and it was a great look too. I thought he had it, and then just the over the back, like it was not a good call. But just
No, it
looking
wasn't.
back at it, things happen, and I'm sure he's going to be thinking about that shot for the rest of his life. But I guess that's just kind of how basketball goes.
I'll tell you that over the back call displacement is the phrase that they'll use. If Coach K is coaching Duke, I don't think that the referee makes the call. The crazy thing about it is if you actually watch the play and you watch it from the opposite angle where you see the ref make the call,
Yeah.
Houston actually grabs possession at that point.
Okay.
So even it's a missed free throw for Duke, Houston would have got possession. But if you're Duke, you'd much rather play defense than give Houston the opportunity to get a couple of free throws and get 2 free points at the free throw line. I think it was a no call in that situation. Duke would have gotten the rebound and you felt that there was enough of something there, then you call the foul. I would have just let it play on. I think if Coach K was the head coach, they would have let it play on with John Shire there. I guess he just doesn't get that sort of leeway. I did not think it was a foul, especially in that scenario. So I'm with, and I know people will say, well, if a foul is in the first minute of the game and the last minute of the game, with those stakes on the line, I just don't think that's how you decide that game.
No, I couldn't agree more. And real quickly, I got to hear who you got for tonight. I actually had Florida and Houston in my bracket, and I had Florida winning it all. So I'm up for some good money tonight in my fraternity league, which I'm excited for. But I think Florida got it. I mean, I think the toughness and the defensive edge and just Houston plays like, they're dogs. I mean, that's just I saw like a video of them at practice where they're just sliding for the ball every time, and like that's just the type of chemistry they have. And I just think on the other hand, though, Florida, they have the depth. I think Walter Clayton I think he should be a lottery pick as well. I think last year, actually, Florida, funny enough, they lost to my Colorado Buffaloes in the first round no, it was the second round, sorry. But it was a game winner shot. I will always remember that. But in that game, I just remember Walter Clayton just making these unreal clutch shots. And, he's been doing the same this past year. I mean, he's had 30 in the last 2 games. And I think that type of edge is just what a national championship team is all about.
Yeah, he's been huge. Not only their win against Texas Tech in that comeback with the 3 to tie it, and then ultimately a 3 to put them back in the lead. He was first team All-American, so he's been doing this all season long, and that is going to be such a key matchup for Monday. Now, when most people see this, the game will already have happened. So, Dean, I want you to change my words around in case something doesn't happen that I say.
Of course.
But I do think that Houston will be able to put forth a better defensive effort than Texas Tech did on him, than Auburn did on him. And if the game is played at Houston's pace, which is a slower pace, Florida wants to get up and down the floor with Clayton. That obviously is advantage Houston. But the thing with Florida is they do have size, especially along their front line. They've actually got experience in these situations. Maybe not in a national championship game, but Elijah Martin had been to a Final Four with FAU previously.
Yep.
LJ Cryer been to a Final Four with Baylor on their run years back in 2021. Sure. But Florida's got a lot of pieces, and I had thought that prior to the tournament, when the brackets were released, I was going to pick Florida to win it all. And then I saw everybody picking Florida. I'm like, well, no way that's going to happen. Didn't want to pick chalk. I ended up picking Duke because I did feel that they were ultimately the best team. But I think a lot of people could be proven right and will be proven right. I think Florida's got too much for Houston to handle. I still can't believe Houston won the other night against Duke. And I'm just going to make this point. You mentioned the gaps or the lead that Duke had. They had a lead with 6 points with about 30 seconds left. They had a lead of 9 points with 3 minutes left to go. But they didn't go that final 10 minutes of the second half with more than one field goal. They had a Cooper flag 3, and yet they needed to go down to the wire to win. I just don't think that happens this time. I don't think you can shut Florida down. Maybe you get them out of the rhythm, but I think Florida ends up cutting down the nets in San Antonio.
Yes, sir. I got Florida as well, so hopefully we do not have to do any editing tomorrow. But sweet. A couple more exciting topics to cover. Obviously, you being in LA and just the NBA playoffs, and obviously, I wish I was, around the office when that Luka trade went down, because I'm sure you guys were just like anyone else, but I'm sure it was, so exciting around the office just talking about it and like, is this real? Like, and all that. But it still really hasn't even hit me, but it is real. Luka's with the Lakers, and the Western Conference is so tight right now. I think seeds 3 through 8 are all within 2 games of each other. So it's really anyone's standings to lose or to win at the same time. And, like we've seen with the Lakers and playing the Nuggets the past couple of years, it's all really about matchups. I guess my big question, Western Conference and Eastern Conference, is this the year for the younger, maybe a little less experienced teams, such as, the Rockets, the Thunder, even the Cavs? Or are we going to see, a repeat from the Celtics, or, a team with, a bigger name such as the Lakers or even Nuggets?
I think that the Lakers are going to have troubles getting out of the West just because of the lack of defense that can show up with that team. I'd be really surprised if they buckle down and lock down teams in the postseason. Now, it has happened before, but I don't think they're necessarily equipped to do that. I actually think that it's just Oklahoma City in the West. I think we're going to get a lot of great matchups. As you said, we don't know who's going to play who, but everybody is good enough, or everybody has at least a unique storyline in that 3, 4, 5, 6 matchup. I do think Golden State's the team that nobody will want to play with Steph Curry for obvious reasons. But if they get Jonathan Kuminga playing at a high level, and I know Steph's been great lately, but was shut down on Sunday night and had that miserable game against the Rockets, I don't think that's the normal Steph Curry that we're going to see. But if you see him like you saw him against the Lakers and you saw the other players stepping up, I think that can put a fear in teams. I know in your backyard, the Nuggets are NBA champions from a couple of years ago. I just don't see it outside of what Jokic can do, and he does everything.
Sure.
I just don't think that the road sets up for them like it did a couple of years ago. If they play the Timberwolves again, my goodness, it's just going to be amazing games back and forth, game in and game out. But I do think that when all is said and done, ultimately it doesn't matter. It's funny because I don't consider Oklahoma City almost young anymore in a weird way, just because, SGA's been in the league for a while. Guys like Lou Dort, you bring in Caruso. Jalen Williams was an all-star. He's got a couple of years under his belt.
Sure. New to the whole inexperience in the playoffs. So
absolutely, 100% correct with that. But I just think they're better than everybody. And ultimately in the NBA, that's what wins. Now in the East, different story. I don't think you're going to see a threat from a team like Milwaukee, right, even though they're playing better with Damian Lillard hurt right now. I think that maybe says more about what's going on in the locker room than anything else. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody outside of Cleveland saying that the Cavaliers have a better shot than the Celtics. And I think that people just think that Boston, in the end, will ultimately know how to win those playoff games. I don't want to say that we're destined for a Thunder Celtics NBA Finals, Dean, because I think that's kind of boring and looking at what we think is going to happen. But I'd be hard-pressed to say that wouldn't be the NBA Finals at this point.
No, for sure. The fun part is that we really don't know what's going to happen. I think outside of the Celtics, I think the West really is up in the air. And I don't know if that's just my bias as a big Lakers fan wanting to say that, the Thunder are still too inexperienced, but the regular season really doesn't matter anymore. Once you're in the playoffs, it's a 7-game series. And I have a hard time seeing Luka and LeBron losing together, especially with, a Nuggets team being very different. Jokic putting up a 60-point triple-double and they still can't get the win. But there are definitely a couple teams out there that I don't want to play as a Lakers fan, that being, the Nuggets, the Warriors, and the Clippers. The Clippers are a sneaky, 4 or 5 seed right now. And, it's never want to play the Clippers, but I think it's going to be fun. I think, it's always fun not really knowing what's going to happen in the NBA. And I think they're just kind of like you mentioned, there are so many different storylines to cover that really any playoff round that goes deep is going to be a super exciting one.
Yeah, and I think that the Eastern Conference, it may not be, it's obviously second billing to what's going on in the West, but you could see, I mean, we've seen upsets. As I said, I mentioned the Bucks earlier. I'm a Bucks fan, so I know all
Right.
about it. The Bucks are the team that loves to be upset in the first round. Last year was at the hands of the Pacers as they were kind of collapsing. I think a lot of people are excited about the Pistons in the Eastern Conference and the
Yep.
great season that Cade Cunningham has had. So even if in the end it is, say, Celtics Thunder, there should be enough in these other rounds to more than keep our interest for the possible matchups and excitement we get.
Definitely, definitely. I think a sneaky pick there too. I mean, not even that sneaky, but the Knicks, when healthy, are a very good team. I know Brunson's been hurt for a bit. It's just hard to see a team beat the Celtics. As much as I
Yeah.
hate to say that, but I got to be real about it. Okay, sweet. Coming into my last topic that I want to cover. This one hits a little home as well. Me being out here in Boulder, Colorado, but we have the NFL draft coming up in a couple weeks. And other than Cam Ward at 1 going to the Titans, it really does feel like, the top 4 or 5 so picks other than him are all up in the air. I wanted to hear your little mock draft or breakdown on where you think each player should go. I know I have like my own idea, but draft day comes around, we really don't know what can happen. I think there are going to be a couple, like 1 or 2 big trades that happen that shake up everything. But I think someone as polarizing as Shadur is, he's very much no one knows where he's going to end up. No one, like, I know the capabilities and the abilities that he has, but I think a lot of people don't think he can play up to that. So what do you think? Where do you think players like Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter should end up?
So we're hearing a lot of buzz now with Travis Hunter maybe going to Cleveland.
Yeah.
And it's the topic of conversation, I think, so much for Travis Hunter has been how much is he going to play offense when he gets to the next level. What I am curious about is what team needs the Heisman Trophy winning dual athlete the most right now? And I actually do think it's Cleveland. Think about everything that's gone wrong with Cleveland. The only good things that have happened with Cleveland over the last couple of seasons were Joe Flacco took over, somehow led him to the playoffs, and then he throws 2 pick sixes to the Houston Texans. They tell Flacco, we don't want you back, so you bring Deshaun Watson back. He was atrocious, then ends up getting injured, and Jameis Winston comes in, saves the day. Now Jameis Winston's gone. There's a setback with Watson in his with his Achilles. Then Myles Garrett spent Super Bowl week saying that he wants to be traded, then becomes the highest paid defensive player that we've ever seen in the NFL. And then the same team that they were when they were wrapping up week 18. There hasn't been a lot of greatness with them. I do think ultimately, Dean, that they are built as a defensive team. And I know Nick Chubb isn't healthy anymore. They relied previously on their offensive line. But now you add Travis Hunter in there, and then you have a star that you can play on offense, which they actually do need. It is makes much more sense for Travis Hunter to go to Cleveland to also give that team some actual goodwill and some hype than it would be to bring in Abdul Carter. And now you've got bookend defensive ends that they can help you, but I still don't know if you're going to be able to corral Lamar Jackson and try to tackle Derrick Henry in that division. I can see why it makes sense. So I'll tell you what, if he doesn't go at 2, I don't think that he makes it past 3, because I think that the Giants would take him in a heartbeat in that situation. Right. I don't think they're going to go quarterback with Russell Wilson now there along with Jameis, but Russell's getting $10 million guaranteed no matter what. And I just don't think you're going to take a flyer on that to draft a quarterback. I am concerned about Shedeur falling further in the draft. And Dean, the funny thing is a stat with the draft that has been brought up is that this is the first time in I don't know how long, but it's been a while, where no team has multiple first-round picks. Every team has their own first-round pick. And I think a reason for that is because they don't love this draft class. Scouts know ahead of time. They know years in advance who's going to be available, who's going to be not, and if a class is strong or not. And I think people knew that this 2025 draft class was not going to be great. So no one was willing to give up, say, a first last year so they could get a first this year, knowing that there may only be 10, 12, maybe true first round prospects. And so I think that that's an issue. And I think that also says something about Shador as well, where I I'm telling you, I think that Jackson Dart has an opportunity to maybe be the second quarterback. I don't think that I don't it may not be fair to Shador, but there are problems when he sits in the pocket, he's fine. But when he gets out, is out of the pocket, can take sacks at times, unwilling to throw it away. I think you may see Shador slip a little bit more than most.
No, very interesting. I mean, I've heard all types of rumors at this point, and I feel like it's definitely been an off season for the quarterback. I think there is still a lot up in the air. Is Aaron Rodgers going to stay? Is he going to the Steelers? And I think that's really what teams are waiting for to decide. Because I mean, I can't see the Browns moving forward with Kenny Pickett as their one. I mean, I think they do need a quarterback, and there has been a couple of those teams that needed a quarterback going into this offseason, and the Browns to me seem like a team that is still up there. If not, I do think he will fall to the Saints. I believe at 9, I believe. And then, there's a Steelers there as well. I think, as a Shadur fan, I think he's the type of guy who should start right away just because of the hype and visibility he will bring to the team. But I would not hate to see him, go to maybe a better team, a team that's actually contending and sit for a year behind a veteran quarterback and, maybe get some experience such as a Patrick Mahomes in the past.
Here's another tricky thing that I don't know how much it comes into the thinking, but I do think it's legit because you mentioned the Saints there. And I feel that the Saints are in prime position to just throw away 2025 to try to get Arch Manning in 2026. Now, there's no guarantee that Arch would enter the NFL draft, but if the Saints were picking one at that point, maybe, and you would know, but pretty much by the time that he would have to make his decision, that if you're the Manning family, that they would say, okay, go ahead, go to the NFL because of the connection to the city of New Orleans and where his
Yeah.
grandpa played in the whole deal. So I think that there are also other teams that think that way. If you're the Giants in this situation, I think that Joe Shane and Brian Dable are playing for their jobs, but are you really going to use your first round pick on Shador? And let's say things fall completely flat on your face and now you're picking number 1 again next season, then you have a chance to get Arch Manning. You're kicking Shador out. So that just kind of wastes a first round pick. I think that those scenarios actually are being thought of by certain teams of, all right, and if it's not Arch Manning, maybe it's somebody else, but maybe you don't want to reach on the quarterback at this point because if you're going to need one in the future anyway, maybe take a player that could be better suited or best player available and then worry about the quarterback next year.
Definitely. No, definitely. It's a great thought. I think it'd be cool to just the amount of talk there has been about like, Dion leaving Boulder and going to the Cowboys. I think that would obviously be cool down the road. And if somehow Shadur can match up with the Cowboys, I just want to see Shadur on a big market team. So that's where he thrives, man. That's where like with the cameras around him and all of that. I think he's a superstar, but it's definitely hard not to be biased when I saw the crazy that happened this past
I
couple
get
years.
it. I get it. No, there's a reason. Like if he stunk, he wouldn't be talked about as a first round pick. Whether his last name was Sanders, whether it was Brady or Manning, if he wasn't any good, he would not be talked about. And he has backed it up. Big 12 offensive player of the year, 37 touchdowns this past year. Like there is something there. There's just this is part of the process when you're figuring out first rounds and you're trying to find the next face of your franchise, specifically at the quarterback position.
No, definitely. And I mean, the biggest thing I can say, just wrapping up about Travis Hunter is like, you cannot pass up on that guy. He's a generational
No.
talent, whether you're going to play him on offense or defense. I mean, I definitely think he should play on both sides of the ball. And I've heard that the Browns are a very like statistical type of team. So I think it'd be cool to whatever team drafts Travis Hunter, like they need to fully utilize him because if not, they're making a big mistake.
It's just if you've got now T. Higgins and Jamar Chase sitting there in Cincinnati when you're trying to face those squads, DK Metcalf's now in Pittsburgh, you're going to want to have those lockdown corners. And they've spent draft capital on corners before, but if you could utilize him then on the offensive side of the ball, yeah, I think it only makes sense. I do think that the Travis Hunter to Cleveland stuff is real.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have 2 weeks left, so anything can happen. I will definitely keep updated on that. But I think at the moment, I think you got it right. But Dan, thank you so much for hopping on, man. Don't want to take up too much of your time. I know we got a March Madness finale to watch. Super exciting. Hopefully Florida wins. So, I win my bracket and I don't and your ego stays alive. But
Oh, tell
yeah.
you what, my bracket is shredded, so we can go either way. So I'll just pull for you tonight, Dean. I'll just do that.
Sweet. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Hopefully, maybe when I'm back in Cali, we could maybe play a round of golf or something. That would be awesome. But I'd love
Absolutely.
to.
And stop by the studio too.
Yes,
Say hi
sir.
to
Yes,
everyone.
sir. Yes, sir. Have a great one, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Dean.